As streetlights flicker behind her, a terrified woman clutches her purse against a raging thug's grip. But when she calmly whispers into her hidden earpiece, everything changes. The robbers have no idea who they just messed with. It was just past 9:30 p.m. when Detective Cassandra Miles stepped out of her unmarked car and began walking down Maple Avenue. The street looked calm, peaceful. Rows of neatly trimmed lawns, porch lights glowing warmly, and the faint hum of cicadas echoing in the background. But Cassandra's instincts told her something was off. Years of experience on the force had taught her that real danger rarely announced itself. It hid in plain sight, in quiet streets, just like this one. She wasn't in uniform tonight. Her dark blue trench coat and black jeans gave her the look of any working professional heading home. But underneath her coat was her badge, her Glock 19, and the calm authority of a woman who had worked her way to become chief of police. No one on this street would guess that the woman walking past them was the most powerful officer in the entire city. Her mind was elsewhere, thinking about an upcoming city council meeting on police reform, when a harsh voice ripped through the quiet evening. "Hey, you lost or something?" Cassandra froze. The voice came from behind, coarse and dripping with hostility. She turned slowly. Two men emerged from the shadow of a parked van. Both were large, muscular, and heavily tattooed. One of them, bald, veins bulging across his arms, wore a white tank top and jeans. The other had a leather jacket and a smirk that made her stomach tighten. "I asked you a question," the bald one barked, stepping closer. "You don't belong here. This is our area." Cassandra's eyes narrowed slightly. She'd heard that tone before, territorial, insecure, and dangerous. "I'm just walking home," she said evenly, adjusting her purse strap. "Didn't realize I needed permission to walk on a public street." The man laughed, a low, cruel sound. "Public? Lady, this here's private territory. You're lucky we're feeling generous tonight. Why don't you hand over that fancy purse, and maybe we'll let you keep walking." Cassandra's grip on her pink handbag tightened. Her pulse quickened, but her face stayed calm. She'd faced armed gang members before. Still, something about the man's aggression felt unpredictable. He wasn't just after money. He was trying to assert control. She glanced around. The street was quiet. Empty except for distant headlights and a barking dog 2 blocks down. No witnesses. "I'm not interested in giving you anything," she replied, her voice steady but firm. That answer flipped a switch. The thug lunged forward and grabbed her bag, yanking it hard. Cassandra stumbled, but didn't let go. The leather handle stretched between their hands as he growled, "You're making a big mistake, lady." Her instinct screamed, "Stay calm." She could end this in seconds, draw her weapon, call for backup. But she also knew that one wrong move could escalate everything. She needed him to reveal his intent first. "Let go," he shouted, tugging again. "I don't think so," she said, eyes locked on his. The man's face twisted with rage. "You think you're tough? You don't know who you're dealing with." Cassandra almost laughed at the irony. "Neither do you," she thought. He yanked harder, nearly pulling her off balance. Her heels scraped the pavement, but she used the motion to pivot, tightening her grip and stepping closer. A controlled defensive move from years of training. Their eyes met in a silent standoff, tension thick as the night air. "Last chance," he hissed, his breath hot and sour. Cassandra's calm broke into a cold smile. "Funny," she said softly. "I was about to tell you the same thing." Before he could react, her other hand reached subtly into her coat pocket, pressing a concealed tactical earpiece button. A quiet beep confirmed the signal. Within seconds, her voice, calm and commanding, went live to police dispatch. "This is Chief Miles. I'm on Maple and 8th. Possible armed robbery in progress. Send units. Silent approach." The thug's eyes flicked with confusion. "Chief what?" he grunted. But Cassandra didn't answer. Instead, she twisted her wrist sharply, breaking his grip with a move so quick he stumbled backward. Her bag was free. He roared in anger and charged again, but headlights suddenly washed over them, 2 unmarked SUVs screeching to a halt at the end of the street. The man froze. Cassandra stood tall, pulling back her coat to reveal the badge clipped to her belt. The gold glint of the chief of police insignia gleamed in the streetlight. "You picked the wrong woman tonight," she said, her voice ice cold. As the officers jumped out, weapons drawn, the thug's face drained of color. His partner tried to run, but it was too late. Within seconds, both men were pinned to the ground. Cassandra exhaled slowly, regaining her composure as her sergeant approached. "You all right, Chief?" he asked. She nodded. "Fine, but next time—" She looked down at the man still cursing on the ground. Make sure your criminals know who they're dealing with." The streetlights flickered once more as she walked past the patrol cars, her trench coat swaying, the night echoing with sirens that weren't for her, but because of her. Morning sunlight spilled through the blinds of Cassandra Miles's office as she stood silently before the large window overlooking downtown. The skyline shimmered with early day energy, taxis honking, commuters rushing, and the faint hum of a city that never truly slept. But inside the chief's office, the mood was still heavy from the night before. The incident had gone viral before sunrise. Someone nearby had caught the tail end of the arrest on camera. The moment Cassandra revealed her badge, the stunned look on the thug's face, and the flashing lights behind her. Within hours, the video was circulating on social media with captions like, "Thug tries to rob woman. Finds out she's the chief of police and Chief Miles handles business herself." Her phone buzzed non-stop. News outlets wanted interviews. The mayor's office wanted a statement. Even the governor's spokesperson had left a voicemail praising her bravery. But Cassandra didn't feel like a hero. She was angry, not because she'd been attacked, but because it happened just 2 blocks from a police precinct. "Chief, the press is waiting downstairs," said Sergeant Laura Kim, knocking softly before entering. "Channel 7, the Tribune, even that online blog that always criticizes us, they're all here." Cassandra sighed, rubbing her temples. "Of course they are. They see a headline, not a story." Laura hesitated, holding up her tablet. "You might want to see this first." On screen was the video. Shaky but clear enough. Cassandra stood in the middle of Maple Avenue, her voice steady as she ordered the arrest. The caption below read, "Proof that leadership still exists in law enforcement." The comments section was flooded with praise, awe, and a surprising amount of admiration. "People love you, Chief," Laura said softly. "They're calling you the Iron Lady of Maple Street." Cassandra chuckled dryly. "Catchy, but I didn't do it for attention, I know. But maybe the city needs to see this side of you. You're proof that not all authority is corrupt, that strength can come with restraint." Cassandra's eyes drifted back to the skyline. She'd spent her whole career trying to build trust between the community and the department, reforming policies, retraining officers, holding accountability meetings. But one viral clip had done more to humanize her in 12 hours than years of strategy sessions. Still, something about last night nagged at her. "Did we get IDs on the 2 suspects?" she asked. Laura nodded, flipping to another screen. "Yes, ma'am. The bald one's name is Troy Becker, 34, multiple assault priors, suspected ties to a local biker gang. The other's Rico Dawson, petty theft, small-time drug dealing. But here's the strange part. Both were recently released early under the city's new parole program." Cassandra's expression hardened. "Parole program? The same one we warned the council about?" Laura nodded grimly. "Exactly. Someone's pushing releases without proper supervision. And these guys are back on the street, claiming territory." Cassandra turned from the window. "Get me everything on Becker and Dawson. Associates, hangouts, prior employers. I want to know who's backing them." "This wasn't random." Laura hesitated. "You think someone targeted you?" Cassandra didn't answer immediately. She replayed the man's words in her head. "This is our area. It wasn't about robbery. It was about dominance, control, territory." "I don't believe in coincidences, Sergeant," she said finally. "Not when it comes to organized crime." Before Laura could respond, the intercom buzzed. "Chief, the mayor's on line 1, Cassandra picked up. "Good morning, Mayor." "Good morning? More like great morning," Mayor Donnelly's voice boomed. "The city's buzzing. You're trending everywhere, Cass. We haven't had this kind of positive PR in months. You're exactly what this department needed." "With all due respect, sir," Cassandra said, her tone calm but firm. "Last night wasn't a photo op. A known felon nearly attacked a woman 2 blocks from a police station. The fact that it was me is irrelevant. What matters is how easily it happened." There was a pause on the other end. "Understood," Donnelly said finally, his voice dropping. "But optics matter. You've just reminded this city what real leadership looks like. Let's not waste that." Cassandra hung up, exhaling slowly. She hated politics. Every time she made progress on reform, the city turned it into a campaign slogan. Her phone vibrated again, this time a text from an unknown number. "You think you stopped something last night. You didn't. That was just a message. Stay off our streets, Chief." Her stomach clenched. She showed the phone to Laura. "Track it," Cassandra ordered immediately. "And alert cybercrimes. Whoever this is, they're not done." Laura's face tightened with concern. "Chief, maybe you should have security detail for a few days." Cassandra shook her head. No, if they're watching, I want them to think I'm unprotected. Let's see how brave they are when the hunter becomes the hunted. That night, as Cassandra drove home, her eyes caught her own reflection in the rearview mirror. Calm, fierce, unshaken. The city thought she was a hero, but she knew better. Heroes ended stories. She was just beginning one. She reached into her coat pocket, feeling the faint vibration of her earpiece, a secure channel always linked to dispatch. "Control, this is Chief Miles," she said quietly. "Keep a unit on standby tonight. I've got a feeling our friends will want a rematch. Somewhere out there, under the same city lights, someone else was watching her, waiting for the right moment to strike again. And this time, she'd be ready." The following evening, the city glowed beneath the streetlights like a restless heartbeat. Cassandra Miles sat in her sleek black SUV, engine idling quietly near the intersection of Maple and 12th, the same neighborhood where everything began. The air was cool and still, but her instincts buzzed like static electricity. Something wasn't right. She had that same uneasy feeling she'd felt countless times in undercover ops, the sense that she was being watched. But tonight, she wasn't the bait. She was the hunter. On the passenger seat beside her lay a small file folder, one her sergeant Laura Kim had handed her earlier that morning. Inside were photos, records and reports on Troy Becker and Rico Dawson, the two men who had tried to rob her. The evidence pointed to something bigger. Both men had received parole recommendations from the same private consultant firm, Redstone Rehabilitation Services, a company the city had hired just 6 months ago to streamline inmate release programs. But Cassandra knew corruption when she saw it. She flipped open a photo of Troy Becker's tattoos, most of them random symbols and names, but one caught her attention, a black serpent coiled around a dagger, inked across his forearm. That mark had shown up before, in old gang files. It belonged to a local syndicate called the Iron Vultures, a group that had recently resurfaced after years underground. "This wasn't random," Cassandra murmured. "They sent him after me." Her earpiece crackled softly. "Chief, it's Kim. You're in position?" "Affirmative," Cassandra replied. "Any movement on Becker's contacts?" "Yeah. We traced a burner phone tied to his parole file. The signal just pinged near you, about 2 blocks east. Could be nothing. Could be our next lead." Cassandra's hand tightened on the steering wheel. "Understood. Keep units low profile. I'll make contact first." She stepped out of the SUV, trenchcoat fluttering slightly in the night breeze. The street looked ordinary. Porch lights, quiet lawns, the smell of rain in the air, but the silence carried tension, as if the neighborhood itself was holding its breath. Halfway down the block, she saw a figure leaning against a street lamp, a young man in a grey hoodie, checking his phone nervously. Cassandra approached slowly. "Evening," she said, her tone casual but firm. The man jumped slightly. "Oh, hi. You lost or something?" Cassandra smiled faintly. "Not exactly. I'm looking for someone. Maybe you can help me." His eyes darted up and down the street, a tell she'd learned to spot years ago. He was nervous. "Afraid. Depends who you're looking for," he muttered. "Troy Becker," she said evenly. "You know him?" He froze. His thumb hovered over his phone, then he shook his head too quickly. "Never heard of him." Cassandra took a step closer, her voice dropping low. "You might want to rethink that answer, because if I find out you're lying, you won't like who you're lying to." The man hesitated, then sighed. Okay. Look, I don't know him personally, but I've seen him around. He hangs with some guys over by the old garage near Elm Street. They've been doing business there. Weird stuff, trucks coming in and out late at night." Cassandra nodded, mentally marking the location. "Good. You did the right thing." She turned to leave when she caught a reflection in a nearby car window, movement behind her. Her instincts screamed danger. Cassandra spun around just as 2 masked men charged from the shadows. One swung a metal pipe. She ducked, the weapon slicing through empty air. The other lunged at her from the side. Cassandra reacted instantly, blocking his arm, grabbing his wrist and twisting until she heard a sharp yelp of pain. She kicked his knee, sending him crashing to the pavement. The second attacker swung again, this time connecting with her shoulder. Pain shot through her, but Cassandra didn't hesitate. She reached inside her coat and drew her weapon, her voice booming, "Police, drop it now!" The men froze. Her earpiece crackled. "Chief? We heard shouting. Are you all right?" "I've got 2 suspects down," she said between breaths. "Send back up to Elm and 12th, and tell forensics to check the van. I think we've got ourselves a setup." Within minutes, unmarked vehicles surrounded the area. The The suspects were cuffed and hauled away, but Cassandra's focus was elsewhere. The grey hoodie man. He was gone. Vanished. Laura arrived at the scene moments later, eyes wide. "Chief, what happened?" Cassandra picked up a dropped burner phone from the ground. "They knew I'd be here. Someone fed them my location." Laura frowned. "You think the parole program leak goes higher?" Cassandra nodded grimly. "Much higher. Someone inside the system is using released convicts to send a message to me, to law enforcement, maybe even to the mayor." Laura exhaled. "So what now?" Cassandra looked down the dim street, siren lights flashing blue and red against the wet pavement. "Now," she said coldly, "we stop playing defense. If they think the chief of police is an easy target, it's time they learn what happens when the law fights back." Later that night, back in her office, Cassandra laid out a map of the city, marking every known hideout of the Iron Vultures. She noticed a pattern. Each location formed a circle around downtown precincts. It wasn't random. It was a siege, and she was in the center. She stared at the red pins, determination burning behind her eyes. "You wanted a war," she whispered. "Now you've got one." Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance as rain began to fall, slow, steady, and cold. Somewhere in the dark, the Iron Vultures were watching, waiting. But so was she. The night that had once been soaked in fear was now alive with redemption. The same street where Monica bled and trembled in the dark now echoed with the wails of sirens flashing blue and red light across the cracked pavement. A dozen police cruisers sealed the block from both ends, their engines idling like growling beasts. Chief Monica Carter stood at the heart of it all, not as a victim but as a storm. Her posture was tall, shoulders squared, trench coat flowing in the night breeze. The same alley where she was robbed was now swarming with tactical units. Detective Ruiz approached her cautiously, clipboard in hand. "Chief, we've got the suspects in custody, all 5. No fatalities." Monica nodded slowly, her gaze cold and unflinching. "Good. Bring them out. I want them to see who they picked a fight with." Moments later, the thugs were dragged out of the van in handcuffs, beaten, dirty and trembling. The leader, Tyrone Blaze Morris, glared at her through swollen eyes. You set us up?" Monica stepped closer, the streetlights gleaming off her police badge now clipped proudly to her chest. "No, Tyrone. You set yourself up." He spat blood onto the asphalt. "You could have told us who you were that night." Her expression hardened. "Would that have made you respect me? Or would you still have dragged me to the ground because you thought I was just another easy target?" The street grew silent. Even the hum of the cruisers seemed to fade. Monica's words hit like thunder. Not just for the criminals, but for every young officer standing nearby. They saw not just their chief, but the strength of a woman who faced violence and refused to let it break her. Detective Ruiz cleared his throat softly. "Chief, media's already outside the perimeter. You want to make a statement?" Monica exhaled deeply, her eyes scanning the scene. The yellow tape, the evidence markers, the trembling men in cuffs, it was all symbolic now. She turned and walked toward the flashing lights at the edge of the block. Reporters swarmed the moment she appeared. Cameras flashed, microphones thrust forward. "Chief Carter, we heard you were involved personally in the capture of the Midtown robbers. Is that true?" She gave a faint, tired smile. "Let's just say justice caught up faster than expected. Is it true you were attacked by them before this?" another journalist asked. Monica paused, her gaze sweeping across the crowd. "I was attacked, yes, but tonight isn't about revenge. It's about responsibility. These men made a choice, a violent one, but it's my duty to make sure justice doesn't just punish, it teaches." The street fell quiet as her words carried in the cold air. Then, slowly, applause started from the officers behind her. Not loud or showy, but firm, steady, proud. As the media was escorted back and the lights dimmed, Monica stood alone for a moment, looking down the same street where she had once crawled to safety. Now it felt different, lighter, like the city itself was exhaling with her. Detective Ruiz joined her side. "You know, Chief, a lot of folks would have just let the system handle it quietly. You turned it into a lesson." Monica smirked slightly. "The system doesn't change until people do, Ruiz. Sometimes they need to see who's really in charge." He chuckled. "You sure you're not running for mayor?" "Not yet," she replied with a rare grin. Just then, a young girl, no older than 16, stepped out from behind a police barrier. Her hands shook as she held out a folded paper bag. "Excuse me, Chief Carter. I live on this street. I saw what happened to you that night. I was scared too. But seeing you here now, thank you for not letting fear win." Monica took the bag gently. Inside was a small drawing, a sketch of her standing tall beneath the city lights, badge gleaming, cape-like coat billowing behind her. In the corner, the girl had written, "Real heroes don't need masks." Monica smiled, eyes glistening for the first time since that night. She looked at the girl and said softly, "Neither do you. Stay strong, kid." As dawn approached, the city began to wake, the sirens faded, the criminals were gone. But the story, her story, was just beginning to spread. By sunrise, news stations replayed her speech. The words "Black female chief brings down notorious Midtown gang" flashed across every screen. Citizens who once feared walking those streets now felt a spark of safety because justice wasn't just a name anymore. It had a face, it had a voice, and it wore a badge named Monica Carter. She stood at the edge of the street one last time before heading back to headquarters. The wind carried the scent of rain and asphalt, the scent of closure. She whispered to herself, "You picked the wrong woman to mess with." And as the first light of morning broke through the clouds, Chief Carter walked away, not as a victim, not as a survivor, but as the unstoppable force the city never saw coming.